Hi, Michael. I'm really happy that you found some time, especially in this hard times that Casper is going through right now. And many people always start to run away. I see it as really refreshing that also at Twitter or X, I see you answering some questions, and also very nice to see that you found some time to do this interview. So I think you can introduce yourself so people will know who you are, and then we can go to like 15 questions that our community had. I asked them at X like, what should I ask Michael? And then we can go through this questions. So the mic is yours.
Okay, danke, Caro. Angenehm. Ich bin sehr froh, hier zu sein. Und würde von hier Englisch reden. Nice to meet you. You were asking for a quick introduction. So I'm Michael Stoyer. I'm originally from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. That's where I learned my German as well. Started out in e-commerce in the mid 90s, and quickly pivoted to mobile applications, mobile technology. And at the time in the 90s, that meant premium SMS, right? So text ABC to 123 to get your 99 cents horoscope or participate in. We actually did a lot of work in Germany with teletext chat. We worked with MTV in Germany and RTL and Bertelsmann and all kinds of large German media companies. Then as the mobile industry evolved, right, it got more advanced. It went from text-based applications to ringtones and wallpapers, if you can remember all that, and videos. And then in 2001, I became the CTO of THQ, THQ, their mobile division. THQ was a large video game publisher at the time, top 3 in the world. I actually worked out of their German office in Krefeld by Düsseldorf. Um, and we put the first downloadable mobile games on a cell phone. So we started the mobile gaming industry back in 2001, and that obviously has evolved in a multi-billion or trillion-dollar industry and led to the app economy that we all live in. And it was a very exciting time. Spent a number of years in Krefeld doing that, and then they asked me to come to the headquarters of THQ in California in 2004 in order to help them to roll out what we've been doing in Europe and in Asia to the United States, which at the time before smartphones was very much behind the rest of the world. Did that for a number of years, stayed in the gaming industry for the next 15 years. Founded a social and mobile casino company called PlayCino out of Santa Monica, California, and that's where I got my first introduction to Web3, to blockchain around 2012. One of our co-founders was a guy called Brock Pierce, who's pretty well known in the crypto industry. And he got involved in a number of projects early on. And I joined often as an advisor, sometimes as a small investor, and got my first exposure then, while still running the technology for this gaming company. Then around 2017 or so, we sold the gaming company, and I basically stepped into blockchain sort of full time, more or less. In 2018, I became one of the co-founders of Casper Labs, so the company that originally developed the protocol, the company that I know you have a number of questions about today. I developed the original technology scope for Casper's protocol as the original sort of CTO of the holding company. And in 2019, I left Casper Labs from an operational perspective. So I was still a shareholder, but wasn't involved in the day-to-day. I have another company called Make, which does a lot of things both in blockchain as well as other industries, such as the health industry. That became my main focus. Then in 2020, 2021, when Casper was getting ready to launch its mainnet, they came back to me and to Make and said, well, listen, we've developed this fantastic protocol and we're ready to launch, but we don't really have all the tools that you would expect in a blockchain ecosystem, right? So there's no good block explorer, there's no good wallets, the developer tools aren't really fully there. Can you guys help us? So that's how my other company, Make, got involved in the Casper ecosystem as an outside contributor, which I've been doing for, or what we've been doing for the last 4+ years. And then in light of all the recent changes that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, several months ago, I was asked to join the Casper Association as their first and new CTO to oversee the continued development of the protocol and the network and everything else related to it. So just to clarify one more thing, because I know this is often a question in the community, there were always sort of two entities in the Casper ecosystem, right? You had Casper Labs and you had the Casper Association, and it wasn't always clear to the broader public, A, that there were multiple entities, and B, what their respective roles were. So when the mainnet launched in March of 2021, Casper Labs, up until that point, had been the primary entity developing the network. They essentially handed over that responsibility to Casper Association at that time. And Casper Labs as a company, which is a for-profit commercial company, started to pursue enterprise use cases, right? So they wanted to develop enterprise software that they could sell to large companies. Casper Association, on the other hand, was responsible for everything public-facing, the network, the protocol, the token, you name it. The reality of basically, for historical reasons, because Casper Labs developed the protocol, many of the developers, the engineers that were working on the core protocol, were still employed by Casper Labs, while the Casper Association was essentially paying them through an outsourcing agreement with Casper Labs. It turned out, and it was proven over a number of years, that that's not an ideal solution, right? If one entity is responsible for the development of the protocol, but another entity is actually doing the physical execution of it, it's not optimal. So what started now 6+ months ago is a process of moving all those responsibilities, or moving the actual human resources, right, the engineers, from Casper Labs to Casper Association, so that the Casper Association is the only place that this development takes place. And there's a singular focus on really moving the protocol and the network and the token forward. In that context, there was no CTO at Casper Association, and that's why that process started, and I became the CTO of Casper Association. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks a lot. Especially, I didn't know that the part that all the developers from Casper Labs now moved to Casper Association. I didn't know that. Before I start with the questions, some question is coming up in my mind right now. If it's okay, I would like to ask that. I don't know in what extent you can give an answer to that. Was there any signs that the former CEO of Casper Labs was willing to separate himself from Casper, or did it hit you out of the blue?
Well, a little bit of both. So let's rewind, right? So Proof AI as a product was publicly announced on I believe it was May 22nd of this year or something, right? So 5-6 months ago. And we understood, we as a ecosystem participant, as well as the CA as an entity, that it was developed against the Casper network, and it really was, right? There have been public beta testing on the Casper network, and things were moving forward from that perspective. Then around mid or late August, I believe that Casper Labs entered into conversations with Hedera about a possible partnership to bring Proof AI over to their network. Obviously, this was not a public conversation at the time. Companies get into business negotiations all the time. Sometimes they lead somewhere, and most of the time they don't, right? So you don't say, well, hey, we're now talking to somebody else about doing a project together, because the conversation may be dead the next day, right? Somewhere between late August and when it became publicly known, which is now a few weeks ago, Casper Labs notified the association of those ongoing conversations, because they didn't appear to be dying, right? They were continuing to negotiate. So there was a period of time that some people at Casper Association were aware of the conversations, and that they were progressing. So when it was finally announced, it was not like, hey, wow, tomorrow we're moving away, right? Like we knew that these conversations were happening and that the negotiations were moving forward. But when the negotiations concluded and they entered into that agreement and consumed the agreement, within days that was publicly announced.
Right, that's great. That's a good answer. I can live with that. And now I'm going to start with the 15 questions from the community. But before, one question from our side, because as I was talking very positively about Casper and the project, because I thought the technology was very nice. Many people now, they're bad-mouthing us and like saying, you have been paid by Casper and all stuff. We always tell them we never even get one penny. So I would like to ask you this question. Have CryptoHeroes ever been paid by Casper for creating any content for the CSPR token or Casper or for this interview?
No. But maybe, if you do a good job, we can talk about it. But that's just kidding. No, you've never been paid by Casper for anything.
Yeah, I think that should be clear right now because many people they think like, we just say no, but we did, but we actually never did. And I find it always like, yeah, kind of attacking because whenever we had a project where we had in partnership, we always told the community, like when we are presenting some project, we said like, yeah, this is in partnership with them, this is in partnership with thee. And I don't understand why now, because I guess because the price of Casper went down a lot, many people try to like find anyone who is responsible for that. And in this case, it was us. Yeah, but okay. Let's keep forward. Let's keep on moving with the questions. How do you see the future of Casper? And in this context, what plan do you have for Casper in the future? Are there any partnerships planned?
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I think that Casper has a very strong technical foundation, right? Like we've talked about that, and it's been underutilized for a long time as a result of trying to focus on a very narrow use case. Enterprise use cases are, of course, very interesting, and it's a valid strategy because when you bring an enterprise onto a blockchain, it can be a really, really big deal, but it's also really, really hard to do so, right? Like enterprises are like giant ships in the ocean. It's not very easy to change their direction or get them to move. It takes a lot of effort, and it takes very, very long. I personally think that by Casper focusing only on enterprise in the past and ignoring mass market retail use cases, the project has certainly missed some opportunities, right? So when I joined a couple months ago, one of my first priorities was to make sure that really the world knows that Casper is open for all project types, not just enterprise projects that may not actually ever happen, as we've seen. So we're looking and investing heavily in DeFi, looking at gaming opportunities, real world assets, and really all other mass market use cases alongside of enterprise. So just to be clear, enterprise uh, is not a use case that we're dismissing or is going away, but it should not be the only focus going forward. Another priority for me when I joined was to make Casper truly a community-driven project, right? So a successful decentralized open source blockchain project needs to have a strong community that is part of driving the project forward. And this has meant a few things. We are implementing changes to how the chain and the project is governed so that the Casper community has a say in the important decisions going forward. And we're trying to provide the community with maximum access to information and transparency, and interviews like this and conversations with the community, like you mentioned on X and Telegram and everywhere we can sort of engage, are a big part of that. We've started recording and publishing all of our important ecosystem meetings with DeFi developers, with the core engineers, and with validators, for example. And also, obviously, when I joined as the CTO, one of my primary and really top priorities, first and foremost, was to deliver the technology. Casper 2.0, or Condor, as we used to refer to it, has been really much delayed. And it wasn't even exactly clear which features were going to be included and which were not. We have worked through a lot of the optimizations of the development process, and we're really excited that by this week, we will be feature complete on Casper 2.0, and we will be proceeding with the next steps in rolling it out to the network and getting it launched. And this is really a major milestone for the Casper network. That's I think Condor or Casper 2.0 was announced maybe even 2 years ago. And we're now at the point where we can say, okay, we're complete with development. We're in testing. We're in the rollout process, and it's going to get launched. So you're talking about projects, etc. So in the past month, just as an example, we've kicked off several new projects, including a new liquid staking project that really makes good use of the high APY on Casper, right? Like if you look at proof of stake projects or tokens, the APY that you can achieve on Casper is relatively high. It's one of the highest ones that you can find out there. And that really makes for an attractive liquid staking opportunity. So we've partnered with Router Protocol, which in addition to bridging to 30 or 40 different chains, and I think just yesterday they announced that Bitcoin is now one of those chains as well. They will help us build interfaces into other networks where users of other blockchains, with the click of one button, can convert their assets into liquid staking tokens on Casper and start earning 15% or more APY on them. So you can imagine having, say, USDC on base, clicking one button, and that USDC gets bridged over to Casper and then automatically put into a liquid staking token, and it could swap into other things from there. But you start earning that 15% APY, which we expect will be a very attractive product to bring over more users and more TVL to the Casper network. And that's something that will launch alongside of Casper 2.0.
That sounds really nice. Is it like that the coins that are going to be bridged are like a kind of wrapped Bitcoins then, or are they really swaps?
They are wrapped and then swapped potentially, right? So the nice thing about this router protocol is it's a fantastic bridge. It's a lot faster and efficient than many other bridges. But the other thing that they've done is develop something that's called router intents, which you can check out on routerintents.com. And it is an ability to attach an intention to a bridging transaction, right? So normally when you bridge, essentially the only thing that happens is you take asset from chain A to chain B, and then you have to do whatever you want to do with the asset on chain B. In this case, you can attach an intention to the bridging action, so that's it's not just the bridging from chain A to chain B, but on chain B, all kinds of other things can happen, right? So you say, I want to bridge to Casper and swap it into staked Casper, right? Liquid staked Casper. That's all one click of a button. So now it's really just about where can we get this button positioned, right, in other ecosystems and through marketing, so that we get the exposure to the users on other networks who are looking for a higher yield and potentially more interesting DeFi instruments, and can have access to that, like I said, with the single click of the button.
That sounds good. It reminds me of Cardano's, like with Bitcoin OS, they are planning to become the smart contract layer of Bitcoin. Are
Yeah.
some features like that also possible with this partnership that you're talking about?
I'm gonna have to owe you an answer on that. I don't know.
No worries, no worries. But that were some great informations that I haven't heard until now. Thanks for that.
Sure.
The other question was, I think you basically answered it kind of, but still, why is Casper so special and technically at a high level?
Okay. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, that like the fundamentals of Casper were what's interesting about the project, right? So the design principles that were used for Casper, as you know, were really meant to support very demanding enterprise use cases and to seamlessly fit into enterprise software environments, which have very high demands, right? So the result of that is that Casper has a lot of technical features that make it a very high-end and powerful environment to develop on. For example, the built-in upgradable smart contracts. I don't know if you are a software developer as well, but anyone who's in software development really knows that app development is never finished, right? At some point, you want to add a feature, change a feature, fix a bug. And in most blockchains, that means basically deploying a new contract and redirecting all your users there, and your old contract is still there. There are now some blockchains, including in the EVM world, where they've figured out workarounds for that by using proxy contracts, right? So you basically have one contract that basically is a traffic cop, if you will, and it directs the transactions to a specific different contract. It's all very hacky and workarounds. In Casper, from day one, we've had the concept of upgradable smart contracts, where this is managed on like a native on-chain basis, making it so that you as a developer can iterate your project, make changes, and fix bugs, and really target basically develop applications on blockchain the way that you would in the normal world, right? Other things are things like built-in access management and roles. Like if you build an application, you're going to have admins, you're going to have moderators, you're going to have regular users. These are all different types of use cases and require different kinds of access. Again, there are hacky ways of doing that on other blockchains. With Casper, this is built in, where you can give access to some functionality to some users and not to others. All in a way that this is native to the execution engine and therefore more secure than all these workarounds in other environments. Another example is the built-in testing harnesses, right? When you develop software, you want to build automated tests that verify that what you've built is working the way that it's supposed to. And with the built-in testing harnesses, that's a way for smart contract developers to easily include automated tests in their code and ensure that there's higher quality and a bug-free final product. I could go on with examples like that, but the bottom line is that Casper provides app developers with an end-to-end toolkit that allows them to develop advanced applications in ways that are more compatible with traditional software development, and therefore also more applicable to more use cases and more accessible to developers who don't have prior blockchain experience, right? Like if you look at the EVM space, obviously there's a healthy and large ecosystem there, but the pool of like Solidity developers is pretty limited. If you want to develop on Casper and you come from any sort of software development background, you will find a much more sort of mature and familiar development environment that you can jump into and be productive in and do the things that you're used to in other environments than in many, many other blockchains.
I think one point that I found really interesting was also that at Casper, you can develop with the most common programming languages.
Yes,
That's what I
so
found.
the Casper's execution engine is WebAssembly based, and WebAssembly can be compiled from many, many different languages. We have sort of standard interfaces available for Rust and assembly script, which is sort of a version of JavaScript. But theoretically, you can develop from any language.
Yeah. All right. And the next question was, it was question number 4 now. What is Casper in your eyes?
Wow, sounds like you're asking for like a one-sentence definition. Um, I actually think that our tagline is a pretty good description. Casper, the future-proof blockchain. I would probably want to include the word community and user or developer friendliness in there. So if you're looking for a single line, I would say Casper is the future-proof, friendly community chain.
I think that's enough. The people who were asking this question, I think they just wanted to have an image of you and how you see the project, you know. So I think if you won't be like willing to stand behind the project, you would have been gone by far right now. So I think that's enough of an answer. Question 5 was, what role will AI play at Casper now that proof AI is off the table? And in this context, How can projects effectively benefit from Casper in the AI sector?
Okay, so I'll start with part two first. So I think it was Sam Altman, right, the founder of ChatGPT and OpenAI, who said that he actually hates the term artificial intelligence or AI. He says, don't call it AI, just call it software, right? So just like in any software project where there's room for blockchain in the technology stack, I know that Casper can make a very solid case of why it should be considered for all the reasons that I explained in your previous questions, right? So I don't want to sort of pigeonhole us, like define us as a like, well, we are an AI blockchain. I think that is I know that there are some projects that do that, and I know that even Casper Labs was doing that to some extent with defining this very narrow use case of, well, we are particularly well fit for enterprise AI governance use cases. I, in the end, it's all software, right? So blockchain use cases span a very, very broad sort of gamut of use cases. That's not to say that there are not AI use cases as well. One that is coming up and that will launch later in November, I believe, is a project called Coral AI, which is an AI project where you can use human language, right, like regular English sentences, to describe a token. So you can say, well, I want to have a token that is called Caro. It should have a supply of 1 billion tokens, and it should be allowed to be staked. And every time somebody stakes, they get whatever, a reward. Then Coral will actually write the source code for that token, create a smart contract, deploy it to the Casper blockchain, and a couple minutes later, you have the token that you just described. So that's a really cool use case, we believe, because it enables anybody. And like you said, you're not a developer. You're probably not going to be developing any smart contracts the traditional way. But when this launches, you could go on Coral and say, well, I want to launch the Caro token. This is what I want it to be like. Press the button, and 5 minutes later, you're in business.
That sounds really that the Casper's going more in the direction of being yeah, like underlying the ecosystem, like to that the ecosystem grow, huh?
It's all about ecosystem, right? Like, listen, we're like, blockchains are called a network. A network means that there are going to have to be many, many sort of participants, right? Like a network of one or two is not a network. So we're all about enabling the ecosystem, enabling the entry of more projects, more partners, more users, more TVL, and making sure that Casper can be at the foundation of all of that.
All right, fair enough. The question 6 was, how much Casper does Proof AI still have, and could they dump the Casper price any further?
Well, I cannot talk about price, so I won't. But Casper is still, or Casper Proof AI still has hundreds of millions of tokens. And it is my understanding, and this has been publicly communicated before as well, that the majority of their CSPR will end up with the Casper Association to the benefit of the Casper ecosystem.
Okay. You cannot talk about what kind of percentage is going, like 80 or 90% is coming over, they keep 10%, or is that too far-fetched?
It's not too far-fetched. I just don't have I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep. So like I don't have a final understanding of it. So until I do, I will not say anything that might prove to be incorrect. Like
Fair enough.
I'm all about transparency, but I'm also about listen, there's been, and I know that this is part of like the feedback you're getting. There's been a lot of over-promising and under-delivering in the past of this project. And my goal coming into this was to change that like 180 degrees, right? Like I'd much rather under-promise and over-deliver. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think most of the people would love to have it either that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. The question number 7 was where some of the existing contracts with the previous company Casper Labs transferred to Hedera.
Very simply, the answer is no, and I think that's part of a misunderstanding, right? So, if you look at it, really nothing happened to Casper Labs, the company, other than that they changed their name to Prove AI. The company still exists, right? And whatever contracts they had or have, they still have. The relationship with Hedera is a business deal. It's a partnership. Hedera didn't acquire Casper Labs, the company, so no assets have been transferred from Casper Labs to Hedera.
Okay, I think that should make it clear for many people because I saw this conversation all over the place. They're like, "Oh, did Hedera like buy them? Are they like one company now or something?" I think that made it pretty much clear what kind of a connection they actually have.
It's a business partnership. It's like you can view it as a grant, you can view it as a partnership. The bottom line is that Casper Labs, as a commercial company, was offered a deal, right? A commercial financial deal that was very attractive to them and hard to pass up. And that's the full background of why they entered into that partnership.
Sounds great. Not great, but the
Uh,
explanation
uh,
was good enough for me. This was not one of the questions on the list, but is there any reasons why I'm not I don't know how deep you're in this now because as you said, Casper Labs is like not Casper Foundation or Association. Do you know any reason why Mirnal didn't stay with the Casper blockchain?
it's what I just said. So Ronald is still the CEO of Prove AI, right? That company is still the same company, just with a different name. The reason why they didn't stay with the Casper blockchain is because they were offered a deal that they couldn't pass up. Like if like it's ultimately a commercial company needs to make decisions based on what's best for the company, and they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders, right? And when you're being handed a piece of paper that is so attractive that it would be almost impossible to say no to, then like that's where we ended up, unfortunately.
I understand. I understand. Thanks for the answer. Um, Question number 8 is, will Casper Labs continue to work with IBM in the future? I think you answered that already because the partnerships that they already had before is still Casper Labs. Now it's called Proof AI, so they should still have the partnership, huh?
That's exactly right. I mean, first of all, it's a question to Casper Labs or to Prove AI, right? Like it's not something that I can necessarily answer, but considering that IBM is so, like I said, like partnerships that they have, if they're still in place, they're still in place. Secondly, considering that IBM is one of the enterprises that governs Hedera, right? Hedera has a sort of quasi-centralized governance model where they have a council, as they call it, with a bunch of large companies on it. I think IBM is one of the founding and major enterprises on the governance council of Hedera. Since that's the case, I'm going to make an educated guess that they will work with them on the Hedera blockchain, right? So just to be clear, there are no other IBM projects on the Casper blockchain, so I don't want to create false expectations. My understanding is the IBM Prove AI relationship will continue on the Hedera blockchain because of what I just explained.
Mhm. Yeah, I could have guessed that. I could have guessed that too.
Yeah.
The other question is like, does Casper still have contact with old partners? I think many people mean Casper Labs, and they want to ask like if Casper Association have the same. And they were asking like with WEF, World Economic Forum, because yeah, if you like them or not, I always say that this is another topic, but
Yeah.
they have a lot of power, and I think people want to know if such a powerful institution, if Casper Association still have contact with them in any kind, that would make it, let's say, yeah, positive to invest. I think many of our viewers are going in this direction with this question.
Okay. So same as what we discussed about IBM, right? So any agreements that were with Prove AI or Casper Labs, the company, are with Prove AI, and the same goes for agreements that were with the Casper Association. There's no agreements that have been moved between between the entities. So the World Economic Forum specifically was a partnership of Prove AI, right? Like they did that to develop these enterprise relationships there, right? Because it's mostly like big enterprises that attend those conferences. So that's where it sits. Obviously, the Casper Association was always present at these venues as a partner and presented and hosted events. That means there's also contacts, not contracts, but contacts that resulted from that. The benefits may continue, but the partnership specifically, the membership of the World Economic Forum, is not the associations. That's something that belongs to Prove AI.
All right. Question number 10 is how and to what extent is the blockchain currently being used?
As with all blockchains, like blockchain activity is visible on the Block Explorer, right? CSPR.live. We currently have a decent mix of DeFi and gaming and enterprise and other use cases happening on the chain, but the volumes are not where we want them to be. Not from my perspective, the CA's perspective, and I'm sure not from the community perspective as well. So that is really our main focus on increasing the volume in all those categories.
All right. Question number 11 is how many developers actually build on Casper?
So, are you asking about like the core engineering team? Because the core team at the Casper Association is about 25 people, and you can see all of them on our website, casper.network. If you're talking about ecosystem developers, there are many, right? So one of the initiatives that I started recently is a monthly DeFi working group. And we like, as I mentioned earlier, we post the recordings of those meetings to our channels. But this working group is a place where all or many of the Casper ecosystem participants who develop DeFi related applications on Casper come together to align on priorities and progress and collaboration. So the first meeting took place a couple of weeks ago, and there were 30 or more parties present, and some of these groups have dozens of developers working on Casper. So I don't have an exact count for you between all the parties, but I would say there's hundreds of developers actively developing on the Casper blockchain.
Sounds good. I think, yeah, people just want to know like if there's some potential, if there are many developers, I guess they think the project is getting more used, more apps are going to be developed. I think that's the direction where the question was going, but
Yeah.
you answered it pretty well, I think. Question number 12 is yeah, that's an interesting one. Burn rate is to be introduced with Condor. To what extent does this reduce actual inflation from the current 8%?
Okay. So a burn, just to clarify the question, a burn functionality is introduced with Casper 2.0, not a rate, right? Like there's nothing set. Then the second part of the question, how does this reduce the actual inflation? It doesn't directly, right? So burning CSPR natively wasn't possible until Casper 2.0, right? Like burning means that when you do a burning transaction, the total supply decreases. That just didn't exist. So now it does exist. And it will be up to the community to really decide whether to turn on these burning features or to make changes to the inflation. Like it's an open, decentralized, permissionless protocol. If the community and they are represented by their validators want to change any of those settings, if you will, that's where the power lies. It's not a centralized decision.
Are there any plans? It's not the questions that I had here, but it just comes up, so I'm asking it.
Yeah.
Are there any plans from Casper Association to maybe create some kind of burning rate in the future, like Ethereum tried to do with the Ethereum 2.0? Because now at sometimes they're actually deflationary.
Yeah, so what Ethereum has done is essentially introduce a feature where fees are burned, right? And that's on days that the Ethereum network is particularly active. That means that sometimes more fees are being burned than new ETH is being issued, right? But their inflation remains the same in essence, right? So um, that is a functionality that now exists in Casper 2.0. So one of the settings in what's called the chain spec, right? Essentially the configuration of the network is how do you handle fees? So fees can be handled the way that they've been handled in Casper 1.x, meaning they go to the validator that proposed the block. There are other mechanisms that have been included in Casper 2.0. And one of the settings is burn. So you could say, well, all the fees are getting burned. So that's something that can get turned on in Casper 2.x, right? It won't be in 2.0 because the feature is shipping, but not necessarily any configuration changes to it. And then for that to have a similar impact as that feature has on Ethereum, meaning having days where you burn more fees than you issue new token, that is going to be a function again of getting that volume up, right? You need to have a lot of transactions with fees in order to see significant amounts of token being burned.
I think the general misunderstanding of many viewers is that um, Casper is like, or the Casper Association is like one centralized entity, and they can decide to do it right now. I think many don't understand that it's still a decentralized blockchain, and Casper Association can't do a decision by themselves to like, yeah,
So
let's burn the rates right now, you know?
So I can help maybe clarify that a little bit, right? So first of all, they're partially right, right? Because the Casper Association as an entity uh, is to this day fairly centralized in its governance, meaning there's a board of directors, there's 3 people on that board. That's in essence the only decision-making body for the association as an entity. That is one of the things that I initiated when I joined to change, meaning the association, it's a Swiss nonprofit association, meaning it can have members, and the members elect the board. I want the ecosystem to be represented in the membership of the association, meaning large or stakeholders that can represent the broader community, such as validators or large application developers, exchanges, etc., should be part of the membership of the association in order to determine in order to determine the board. And then the second part of that governance is, well, the board will still be able to make its decisions by voting on proposals, right? I want to have an on-chain mechanism where the community, through proof of stake, because we are a proof of stake network, get to weigh in on those decisions, and not just weigh in, but in some cases actually determine the outcome. That's one part, right? So they're right about the centralized governance of the association. The network, however, doesn't have any centralized governance. So what goes into, I just want to explain, and maybe if I'm getting too technical, you can stop me, but when an upgrade to the protocol or the network is prepared, in order for that to be activated on mainnet, it needs to be accepted by 2/3 of the stake on the network, right? So 67%. How does that work? That means that validators need to decide whether or not to accept an upgrade, right? Like, are they going to install that on their node or are they not? If an upgrade doesn't reach 67% of the stake, meaning all the validators that accept it need to have a total of 67 or more percent of the stake amongst them, that upgrade won't go through. So if that were to happen, the validators can say, well, we didn't accept this upgrade because we want the burn mechanism to be activated before we accept it, or we want the inflation to go up or down, or we want the cost of transfers to be half of what it is, or whatever configuration change they may ask for. That's what ultimately decides what gets on the network. That's how it's governed. So now you're going to ask, well, why do the validators get to decide that? Because we are, like we say, we're a proof of stake network, which we are, but it's implemented as delegated proof of stake, right? So that means that Casper holders who stake their token, stake it to a specific validator. And they basically give power over to that validator in a way, or basically ask them to represent them in the governance of the network, right? So what you want to see is more transparency from the validators, and we're in the process of providing them with the tools to do so, where they can indicate to their communities like, hey, I am going to accept this upgrade, or I'm going to reject this upgrade, or I'm going to vote on A or on B, right? So that you as a delegator can decide, well, does this validator still represent my interests and my opinions, or should I move to another validator with my stake that better sort of fits my view on things? And that's how the community has the ultimate power in how decisions are made on the network and the protocol.
No, that was a beautiful addition to the question. Nice to hear. If you can add stuff like that, just feel free to do it. The more information that people get, I think, the more or the easier it is to make some investment decisions, because many people are right now they're reacting really emotionally to the price, and they don't see the technological advantages which Casper brings. And that's a big problem right now, because many crypto investors, I always say investors, they are like, it's like they're playing casino, you know, they don't research the projects. They don't even know why they're investing in some I don't know, cats or dog images or logo. You know what I mean? And that's a big problem. And my biggest investments when I put a lot of money in a project is always based on the fundamentals and the technology and partnerships of a project. If I see that there's potential and they have something special that others don't have, that's one of the reasons why I invest in projects like that long term. So I always tell the community now, right now I have 45 projects that I'm invested in. I would say like 15 to 10 projects, they're like legit projects. Like I can say like in the future, they will perform well because of their technological advantages. The rest of the portfolio, they're not bad projects that I have, but quite speculative, because the prices right now in the space, they are moving because of speculation. It's like, and it's not in crypto. Many people think, oh, just in crypto. It's in the stocks. It's the same thing. Like everything goes up and everything goes down, not just one stock. You know, it's like it became so speculative.
It's market forces, right?
Yeah.
So listen, you can talk about investors and prices and all that. I cannot. But in my view, when you hold a token, especially in a proof of stake project like Casper, in addition to the fact that that token has some economic value, you are really a network participant, and I think that's what a lot of what a lot of people in the community don't necessarily realize or even make good use of, because as a network participant in a proof of stake protocol, you are not just a passive sort of participant, but you can be an active contributor through your stake, right? So that is something that I think we want to communicate better on and provide better visibility and transparency to end users for, so that they can really sort of leverage the power that they have in order to influence the outcomes for a project and the direction of a project, because that's ultimately what decentralized governance means. Like you as a token holder can use the power, for lack of a better word, that comes with holding that token and directing it towards or against certain decisions.
Actually, yeah, becoming a part of the ecosystem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we can move on to the next question. Why does Casper have no maximum supply?
Well, because it's a proof of stake protocol, right? So proof of stake network security works by economic incentives to validators to run and secure the network. And that is that in almost all cases requires sort of ongoing new token issuance. So it's the nature of the type of protocol that we are. Um, I understand the reason why people ask that. I mean, if you compare it to a proof of work protocol like Bitcoin, for example, right? Like they understand that scarcity is what drives well, token value in that case. Proof of stake is just different. I mean, we talked about Ethereum, and it's also inflationary, right? Like it doesn't work without new token issuance. Ultimately, getting enough volume on your chain and perhaps doing things like burning fees can change the balance of issuance versus usage and burning, and change it so that it effectively becomes deflationary, but the mechanics behind it will always be inflationary.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think this is a big question that I often hear in my live streams. If there are some listings on Binance or Coinbase planned in the near future.
Um, that's a hard question to answer, um, because the planning is not ours, right? So ultimately a couple of things I can say about that. One, Casper Association always pursues and actively pursues more access to the Casper token so that more people can participate in the network, right? So yes, we are all for providing access to the token on any and all exchanges. Um, B, the decision to list the token is exclusively one that belongs to the exchange themselves. It's not something that we can decide. And C, I think there are misunderstandings out there in the community about how this works, right? Like there are people who believe that why don't you just write a really big check to Binance and then they'll list you, for example, right? And that's just not how it works. There were times when, and that's in the early days of this market or this industry, that it did work like that. But that hasn't been the case for a very, very long time. So it's not like, oh, they want to get on Binance, but they refuse to write a check or something like that. That's just not the reality. It doesn't work like that.
Dude, that's great because I actually read something about like that. They said like in an average you could pay Binance like up to 800,000, or they want to have some token, or you can buy some BNB tokens in the value of 5 millions, and then you need to like stake it on Binance, and of course you need to like have all the requirements like being SEC proof and all this not SEC proof, but the regulations should be
Yeah.
should be like you should have the checkpoints. Yeah, great to hear that that it's not that easy anymore. Let's say it this way.
The best
Um,
thing we can all do as a community is just focus on usage and users and volume and TVL, and that is what elevates projects ultimately.
Michael, this last question, if it's wrong, I'm sorry for that because some of the community members were asking like, are you still buying the dip at Casper? And to some point I did, and then I read some article that you may be under a lawsuit, and that's what I told the community too. I was like, oh man, Michael Steuer is like is he's in a lawsuit, and that's where I said like now I'm stopping to buy. I wanted to like let everything calm down and have more information before I make some buying or selling decisions. Could you say some words or spare some
You're
words?
asking if I am personally in a lawsuit? Okay, so well, that's a surprising question. So, yeah, somebody is paying good attention. In fact, yes, I am currently named in a lawsuit for the first time in my life. Since that case is still pending, there's not a whole lot I can say about it other than give you sort of a high level description. There is a former member of a DAO that I was also a member of who decided to sue the members of that DAO, including me. And that case is ongoing. I expect it to be resolved soon. And that's it. That's my first lawsuit in my life, and hopefully my last. And it stems from my membership of a DAO and a disgruntled former member who went and then sued the entire DAO.
So it has nothing to do with Casper whatsoever.
No, no.
Yeah.
I mean, the DAO was active in the Casper ecosystem, but it has nothing to do with Casper.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's something internal with the other project. It's sometimes like that. People misunderstand each other. People are angry at each other, and then yeah, sometimes sometimes stuff like that happens. I guess.
Listen, especially in the United States, like suing somebody is a very low threshold, right? So it doesn't take a whole lot. This was very surprising. It's meritless in my view, and it's hopefully resolved soon. And that's it.
Yeah, Michael, I'm thanking you for having the time and coming here. I think it's really, really refreshing to have somebody who is that transparent like you are right now. I love to see that you're also answering lots of questions on X and you're not like ducking away or shying away. Many people, they're like digging a hole and then they hide themselves. I think it's really, really refreshing to see somebody like you who stands like in Germany we say er steht seinem Mann. Like I don't know how to translate it in English, but he stands his man. Like it's a direct translation.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like that you're not shying away. That you're here and you say, okay, now I need to. I try to make some changes, and here I am, and I'm as transparent as I can be. And yeah, I like it, and I appreciate it really much.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and I really enjoyed talking with you, Caro. And if there are any other questions from the community, from you, I'm always here to answer them. And transparency is definitely something that I fully stand my man for.
Yeah, sounds great. Maybe we could like try to do an interview like that 1 year later to see what changed, what happened. Let's hope we're not in a bear market then, but many people will be depressed in a bear market. But I think it would be nice to make an update to see like how the advancements are at Casper.
I would love that. And if I just can add one more thing just to the community in Germany and everywhere, I would just encourage you to continue to engage with us and with me. Ask your questions, give your comments, give your feedback, complain where you want to complain, like where it basically goes back to what I said earlier. You're not just a token holder. You can be an active participant in the network, in the protocol, and in the future of this project. So we're here to engage with you, and we're looking forward to engaging with all of you.
Thanks a lot. I wish you a nice day. I want to say good evening, but here in Germany it's like 9 p.m. right now. So I wish you a beautiful day.
Thank you very much, Carl.
Yeah, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Sounds good. Same to you.
Bye bye then.
Bye.